Hello and welcome. So I am kind of new to the Warframe scene. However, I was kind of inspired by a YouTuber by the name of Bonk. He has been posting a tournament series where the community votes on their favorite Warframes, and it's the community's choice of which Warframe is the quote unquote best Warframe. And I was posting a comment on one of his videos and realized that my build that I was trying to show people was a little convoluted and made kind of a little bit or not a ton of sense in a comment. So I decided that I might actually start a series on my channel to explain the builds that I use and explain how to use them as well. So today I'm going to be looking at my Frost build. My Frost build was inspired by that of Nightmare Frame, who has a great video showing off how Snow Globe, Frost's third ability, when it's used to slam an enemy into a wall or another enemy, those enemies will take 50% of their maximum health as true damage. What's important here is that you enhance that damage with viral, and then you can one-shot them. The trick is, though, is that you have to be able to move them, which made his build weak to both Eximus and Acolytes. I wanted to fiddle with the build around, especially with the new armor changes, and try to see if I could mitigate those issues by putting my own twist on his original build. His original build was rocking 175% efficiency, a 50% duration, and a 40% strength. Whereas my build is using 95% duration, 60% efficiency, and 84% strength. The reason why I'm going with these stats is because, due to my lack of an arcane energize, I can't I can't use a hard CC ability as my helmet. I went with Spectre Rage here because it's a soft CC ability, so it helps out Frost, and it also, using the Spectre Siphon augment, solves most of my energy issues. I only have a Grace. I'm not really using it. I don't really have good arcanes here, which is why it is what it is. I'm not trying anything spicy or fancy. But that is sort of my choice there. Natural talent makes a huge difference for Avalanche. I have Archon shards installed into my Frost Prime, 2 energy ones and 1 cast speed one to be specific, but you don't need the cast speed one, and the energy ones are just there for personal ease of use. It just makes it so the barrier between how many floors I can cast is it's buffered. So the reason why I'm running the increased strength is because, well, I mentioned the new armor changes. Avalanche now strips permanent armor, meaning if I get it up to 50%, 2 casts can strip 100% off of the armor off of any enemy. This includes Acolytes and Eximus specifically, which are the 2 things that this build struggled dealing with before. I also made some other weapon choices in order to improve its capability of dealing with those, but we'll get into those. How about right now? So for firsts, I'm actually using a Phantasma as my primary. The Phantasma primary is kind of good because it has infinite body punch through. So I'm using this as a primer. That sounds a little silly because the Phantasma does plenty of damage to deal with Steel Path, though it doesn't scale super well past like 200 and 300. I think the highest I've ever brought this build up to is like 260, and the Phantasma was doing jack all. But the 2 saving graces that Phantasma has is that infinite body punch through due being a beam weapon. It also has radiation, which is a form of soft CC, but most importantly is it does heat, and heat triggers Cascadia Flare, which is great for the secondary choice. This is a very normal Phantasma build. You can find it on several different videos. The only thing that I have different is a Riven here, but you could swap this out for Prime Point Blank or pretty much any damage multi-shot mod that you want. But yes, Cascadia Flare. I chose the Latum. The Latum is fantastic. It does a crazy amount of burst ammunition while it's in Incarnon form, and due to the increased duration that we're running on our Frost, it means that Avalanche CCs enemies for such a long period of time that you get free headshots on them, meaning you can build up your Latum Incarnon form whenever you want, essentially. I tend to use this weapon against armor stripped Eximus because the headshot multiplier using, well, just the single target headshot multiplier that they did, as well as the 50% increased headshot damage the Latum has, means that the Latum is fantastic at dealing with those big enemies. And then once burst damage and it solves most acolytes pretty rapidly, especially if you get those headshots after cold procking them using your ultimate. Corrosion heat, because, well, corrosion, so that this way we can do plenty of damage to the acolyte, 75% increased, I think. And heat, because we need to keep Cascadia Flare active. Last but not least is the Zaw. The Zaw, I know that this Zaw build is remarkably terrifying because I'm running very expensive mods, a lot of Forma, but it boils down to basically three things. You need a lot of attack speed. I have Primed Fury. This is supposed to be the Quickening if you do not have a Riven. I have a Riven and don't have the Quickening, so it's just the way it is. And then Rending Crane, because the neutral attacks of Rending Crane counts as slams for Exodia Hunt, which is the way that we are going to be grouping up our enemies. The faster attack speed is because, well, it's 50%. We need to knock those attacks out as fast as we possibly can. Focus Pool, it was Vazarin. The choice is simple for Protective Sling. There's really no in your focus pool it's going to matter as much as Protective Sling. It allows you to cheese like 3 out of the 5 acolytes. I think there's 5 of them, but it lets you cheese most of the acolytes except for Angst and Violence. And we don't need the energy regeneration from Zeneric or the damage from Naramon. It's really the only choice here. For companions, well, you can't see him, but Mr. Wiggletuff, my Panzer Vulpaphyla. A pretty obvious build. It's a standard Vulpaphyla build, but for now, let's go ahead and get into the field test. So I'm going to be going to a Kuva Survival. Kuva Survivals they're guaranteed to have Eczema spawn pre 5 minutes, and I don't want to be in this mission much longer than 5 minutes because you'll get the picture pretty rapidly. Starting off, I always activate my first ability. Since Frost is horribly bad at shield gating, you want to get as many barriers to shield gating as you can possibly get. Vazarin's first ability is great because it increases your shield recharge rate by 60%, which is remarkable for shield gating. So now we're going to go ahead and cast Protect Dash. Go here. Prime them, slam them. Easy peasy. We're at almost full energy. One more of those combos and we'll be good. Spectral Siphon. Group, spin, cast. And this is why we're using the Phantasma. The Phantasma is literally the best weapon I found for priming. Infinite body punch through, so much multi-shot, 80% status chance per 16 pellets. It primes them instantaneously. Spin, cast. So now that we have a lot of life support built up, we are going to want to start going for some rudimentary headshots with the Latum. They cover their faces when they get frozen. But the reason why we're doing this is because we need to stack our Latum prior to the Acolyte spawning. We have about enough in order to kill the Acolyte, so we're going to go back to comboing. Slash proc, no big deal. Rolling guard. Remember that railing thing that I commented? Well, I'll let me get to a better spot so I can showcase this build's ability to just, with the increased range that you get from your third, just stand still and I smack them against that railing, that wall, and so on. So here's that Eximus. As you can see, when I ult, I can strip their armor, but they don't get stunned. And so we use the Phantasma in order to trigger some heat procs. If this was an infinite mission, then I would be totally screwed and need to combo them into the floor. Because, yeah. But otherwise, the heat procs are fantastic at getting rid of those void shields, which is what we need. I've run out of energy because I wasn't paying attention. But once I get enough, I will cast Spectre Siphon. Kill these bad guys. Cast 4. Group them. Spin. Cast. very straightforward. It takes a little bit of used to in order to get this quick, not to mention a lot of setup. This build isn't winning any awards in pubs. It's not that good for killing pubs, but or killing in pubs, because people, what they tend to do is that they just tend to take their Mesa, their Czar, their Boom and Zoom, basically, and they're gonna kill the enemies that you're trying so very hard to group. But for solo play or for organized crime, organized combats, I would say this is probably one of the better Grineer killers. Oh, I'm also using an arcane. It's totally unnecessary, but the arcane, the one that makes it so whenever you transfer in, it sucks enemies in. I'm just using that as a secondary way to group enemies up between my my dash casts. So now you can see Angst is here. Angst is one of the harder ones because he can be bullet immune. But now we pull out. We're gonna find him. Where are you, Angst? We can stack up our Cascadia Flare. There you are. So the reason why he was frozen there is one of the big reasons why I think Spectre Rage is remarkably good as a skill. What happens is that they start melee acolytes. What they'll do is that they will assume that the mirror is an enemy, and they'll attack the mirror and freeze in place, which is great for us because it means that they stand still, free for those headshots. Another one of those slight ways that we have to help with killing our two biggest issues. Alright, so let's go ahead and make our way towards its extraction, because we're done here. The strengths of the build is that this build will perform the same at level 10 as it, or well, not level 10, but it'll perform the same at level 150 as it does at 350, as it will at 9,000. So it is great for dealing damage. It is not very good at disruption. I've tried it in disruption. The inability to use to do the infinite damage combo against Demolists means that it's kind of hard to use in that regard, but it works okay until you get to around level 200, where the Eximus start overpowering the standard enemies in disruption. But for survival, Grineer, this is my go-to build every single day of the week. I absolutely love this strategy, I love this build, and I love this Warframe. If you've got any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you think that this build guide is too long or too annoying or whatever the heck, you can go ahead and leave a comment below. Tell me what you thought, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.